Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we are breaking down the Assault Frigate Mark II for 2022. I've been doing these Armada ship breakdowns all year, and even though some of these ships I have already broken down in the past, I wanted to break them down again with updated rules, updated ways to run them with all new types of upgrades, and well, it's just fun talking about it. It's actually one of the ugliest, but also at the same time one of my favorite ships in Star Wars Armada. And if you guys are new to the game or are looking to learn more, you are in the right place. This is a great starting point. I talk a lot about Star Wars Armada as well as a lot of other Star Wars tabletop games on this channel. So if you're interested in that, I hope you'll stick around. I hope you'll join our Discord and ask some questions and show off some of your paint jobs if you repainted anything, or show off some of your fleet build ideas. Ask some questions, join the community, and check out the links in the description below. Also, we are giving away a $25 Amazon gift card, and to have a chance to win that or any of the other many giveaways we do, sometimes it's lightsabers, sometimes it's smaller prizes, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. With all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into the Assault Frigate Mark II. So this was the first medium ship to come to the Rebellion. It launched in the first wave of Star Wars Armada, and it sought to kind of be an answer for the Empire's Victory-class Star Destroyer. However, it doesn't really match up to the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, but it is a medium ship for the Rebellion. It happens to be, to this day, the only medium ship for the Rebellion, and I kind of like it a lot because it can do everything. It's not the best at too many things, but it is at least mediocre at almost every task in the game. If we look at the basic breakdown of this ship, it is a medium ship with 6 hull, 3 command, 4 engineering, varying squadron levels. It's got speed 3. It can do 1 or 2 yaw depending on the speed. It's got good side arcs. It's got some moderate front arcs and rear arcs, and has a brace, an evade, and a redirect token. It also has a very substantial shield presence with 4 shields on the front, 3 shields on the sides, and 2 on the rear. This is a competitively priced medium ship that can serve anywhere from being something like a flagship to a flanker to an objective getting ship to a carrier to a specialty ship that can do a number of other very interesting things that also combo very well with a lot of new new upgrade cards that have come out since the Clone Wars. And the fact that it's a medium ship means it can take things like disposable capacitors and throw what little blue dice it does have out up to long range, which is certainly an option, but maybe not the best considering it's only got 1 in the front and 1 on the sides, but it is an option nonetheless. It happens to have very, very wide side arcs, and this was one of the kind of the things that brought Akbar slashing and big broadside lists into the game for Star Wars Armada. This was the first really dominant and excessively wide arc with a big firepower in the side arc that we've seen in the game, and it's to this day it's still one of the best ships to run broadsides, to run big nasty double broadsides if you can do that. And what that means is basically its side arc is its strongest shooting side, and a lot of the times, not every build, but a lot of the builds for this want to make advantage of that big strong left and right firing arc that this has. It wants to oftentimes strafe around enemy fleets, and with a speed 3 and 2 yaw available to it, it can do that fairly well. It's not the most maneuverable, but it is flexible enough to kind of fit that role as well as a variety of other roles. It can even be a flagship in a broadside fleet, or a support ship in a broadside fleet, or a carrier slash support ship in a broadside fleet, while being able to push squadrons and also being able to shoot. And so the fact that it does just about everything is one of the reasons that I think it is so grandiose and ugly. Again, my least favorite physical ship model, although I don't blame Fantasy Flight or Asmodee or anybody for that. I think they did the best with what they have. This is just the way the ship has always looked. All right, so and I always kind of stand by this reason that if this ship had a better sculpt, it would be taken a lot more and would probably people would be crying for it to be nerfed because it might be a little too good. But since so few people take it, it doesn't usually get on the table as much. Maybe not nerfed. I think it's priced appropriately, but it is a very, very good ship. It just doesn't get taken all the time. All right, so let's first start. It comes in two varieties, the A and the B. Let's talk about the A first, since it's in alphabetical order. The Assault Frigate Mark II A is the more expensive version of this ship at 81 points, which is a little on the expensive side, but you're getting a little bit more for this. You're getting significantly more dice. One thing we'll notice about this particular version is that it has 2 blue anti-squadron dice, which, again, for flak, this is pretty good. Although it comes on the version of the ship that has extra blue dice in both the front and rear arc as well. So you're actually getting 3 extra dice. You're getting an extra one in your anti-squadron battery. You're also getting an extra blue die in the front and an extra blue die in the rear. And that's a big dice difference between ship variety. We also have 2 squadron for this one, so it can push squadrons, although this one isn't particularly the best, although it is certainly capable of pushing squadrons for the Assault Frigate Mark II-A. Now, this is a good ship that probably wants to double arc a little bit more than the B. So this is a good one that maybe is used to kind of flying straight at an enemy and maybe being able to get a front arc and a side arc at the same time, because its front arc is a little bit stronger than the B. It isn't going to rely as heavily on the broadsides as the B. So this was a little bit more flexible. It's a little bit better for attacking squadrons. And of course, you're going to pay a little bit more for that since it's got so much more dice. Now, the die in the rear usually isn't such a big deal, but in this case, it is because of the salvo token. Some people have brought this ship back into notoriety recently by running a gate as commander with the Assault Frigate Mark II-A. And of course, you know, when you're using the salvo command, it's going to counterattack after you're attacked using your printed rear armament, and having extra dice on your rear has never been better before than it is now. So the Assault Frigate Mark II-A, I think, is something a lot of people used to pass up because it was a little more expensive, and now I think it's maybe the more desirable of the two because of its salvo capabilities. You'll notice that it does not have a salvo as its defense token. However, there are a number of upgrades that can give a rebel ship salvo, one of them being a gate. The other ones, all of them, as a matter of fact, can be equipped to the Assault Frigate Mark II. So it's a prime ship to be upgraded with salvo defenses. Moving on to the Assault Frigate Mark II-B. This is our more affordable variety version. It's only 72 points, so this is a significant discount. However, we are losing blue dice in the front and rear, and also a blue die from the anti-squadron battery. So it's got less dice, but it still has the same broadside arc. So this is usually the version that you're going to run if you're concentrating on your broadsides. This is a ship that gets often run in Akbar fleets. One of the early builds of this game was to run an MC-80 Home 1 with Akbar on board, and a couple of Assault Frigate Mark II-Bs, each kind of broadsiding out, with gunnery team and just making sure that they could do multiple side arc shots, and kind of ignoring, not worrying about anti-squadron attacks, not worrying about front and back attacks, focusing 100% on that side arc. Because if you're going to focus 100% on the side arc, you're better off taking the B, since it's the same side arc as the A. One other thing about the Mark II-B, in addition to having a cheaper point cost and losing some dice, it also increases its squadron pushing potential. So that's another use for this particular ship, and that it is a great squadron pusher, a great carrier. Happens to have a lot of upgrades that are excellent for pushing squadrons. Now, the upgrades are the same between the two versions of the ships. You'll notice that they each have an officer, a weapons team, a offensive retrofit, a defensive retrofit, and a turbo laser upgrade. Now, offensive retrofit and weapons team tend to be the two that work best with squadrons, and so the Assault Frigate Mark II-B makes for an excellent carrier. So there we go. I mean, we don't really have a whole lot of dedicated, amazing rebel carriers, and this is definitely one of my favorite ones. So that's the basics of the two different versions of the ship. Now let's talk about the titles. Now there are only 2 titles currently available for this ship, although I do believe there was a 3rd title planned that probably got scrapped at some point in production, because there is an extra piece of art for the Assault Frigate Mark II that ended up on the promo that never showed up in any other cards. So I'm thinking to myself, there had to have been another title. There had to have been another painting that was commissioned for a reason that never showed up. So that's my little conspiracy theory for the day. I'm sure maybe I'll ask somebody about that one of these days. So the Paragon is the first title we're going to talk about at 5 points. This is the cheaper of the 2 titles, but this one says, while attacking a ship, you have already attacked this round, add a black die to your attack pool. It's a 5-point ship. Initially, this one wasn't taking a whole lot because it required a little bit more setup. You see, the idea is, since you can attack twice, the Paragon was a little bit better suited for double arcing a ship. And if since you typically would run these offensively in an Akbar fleet with gunnery teams, usually you couldn't attack the same ship too many times, so this one was passed over a little bit more in the early days of Armada. But when it was taken, it would be taken on an Assault Frigate Mark II-A, usually in a non-Akbar fleet. And the idea is that you move in, you try to get a front and side arc attack on somebody. You take that front attack first, 2 red and a blue. And then your next attack is going to be 3 red and a blue from the side, but since you have already attacked them, you also get to add a black die. Kind of makes that side attack a little bit more. And it's really the only way to get black dice with the Assault Frigate Mark II outside of doing something crazy like Sato. But the Paragon has seen a new light lately with the salvo ability, because since you can potentially stall and have the Paragon kind of activate later, especially if you got a couple of small ships in your build, the idea is that you fly it out front, make it a juicy target for your opponent. If they do attack you, you trigger a salvo and attack back, and now you have attacked this ship. So then when it's your turn, if you have double arc on them and you have already salvoed them, now you can add a black die twice. And that, of course, is the kind of like the master plan behind trying to run Paragon. We'll discuss a build to try to make that happen a little bit later on. Gallant Haven, on the other hand, is 8 points and is our carrier title. This one is this one had to have been nerfed early on in that it used to be a little bit overpowered. It was changed a little bit to have a minimum of 1, but basically it says, before a friendly squadron at distance 1 suffers damage from an attack, you may reduce the total damage by 1. It's not a you may, you must reduce the total damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. And so basically, if one of your squadrons gets attacked for 2 damage, it brings it down to 1. If they get hit for only 1 damage, though, they still have to suffer the 1. But the nice thing about this is that it's going to help keep its squadrons alive longer, especially if they stay close to it. It is really good for protecting screens, and it's really good for protecting low health squadrons, especially squadrons in builds that are going to be attacked multiple times. Every time you can do this, you're potentially saving them damage, and of course, if you combo this with being able to fly them onto the station to heal them up a little bit more, or other things that will obstruct attacks, whether it be flying them on obstacles like the station or using a jamming barrier on a nearby flotilla, it can potentially help your squadron stay alive much longer. And so I think that is pretty cool, although it does make the Gallant Haven into a big target, because your opponent may say, well, if I can't hurt your squadrons as good, let me go for your carrier first, and then I will be able to go after your squadrons. But it's a very nice title, although it is expensive at 8 points. So now I want to take a look at a couple of sample builds. First, I'm going to start off with a build. I'm only going to do 3 builds this time, because I do want to point out that you can kind of build this thing to run about any role you can. This first build is kind of a dual function. So, like I said, it can be a flagship. It's got a defensive retrofit. You can put electronic countermeasures on there and any commander you want. In this case, I threw Akbar out here because he tends to be good with it. And of course, if you are running Akbar on here and not on a home one, although I do like a home one to run along with these guys because they don't have a whole lot of dice mitigation, so they can't really do a whole lot about bad dice on their own. That's why it's nice to have somebody like the home one nearby to kind of change a red blank into an accuracy. Kind of like that an awful lot. But yeah, so if you wanted to make it into a flagship, it's got the defensive retrofit, and it's got a brace and a lot of shields, and it's got all the right tokens. So it works for a mid-level, a good medium-sized flagship. It's not going to survive probably the whole game, but it should survive a lot longer than it would otherwise if you didn't put electronic countermeasures on there. Now, if you are running this in an Akbar fleet, whether or not it's your flagship, definitely consider Gunnery Team. I like to also run Enhanced Armament, especially because with Gunnery Team, I'm going to be able to use the Enhanced Armament twice. Enhanced Armament is one of the most expensive upgrades in the game at 10 points, but it definitely is worth its weight in gold on an Assault Frigate Mark II, especially in an Akbar fleet. And especially with some dice mitigation, because of the fact that you're going to be now rolling 5 dice out the side, even actually probably 6 if you did a concentrate fire to make sure that Gunnery Team fires, and then 5 again for the second shot. But at long range, you're going to get that extra die here. It's going to be locked into that side arc, and you're going to be able to fire it a second time with Gunnery Team, and that's what really makes the 10 points worth it. It's one of the hard things about spinal armament on a lot of ships is that sometimes you don't fire it twice, and so if you're taking a big expensive modification to add dice to an attack, and you only get to add 1 die during your turn, it becomes a little bit less valuable. So with this particular configuration and the wide arcs built into the Assault Frigate Mark IIB, it makes Gunnery Team and Enhanced Armament a fantastic combo that almost always work. Additionally, since the Mark IIB happens to be the better carrier variant, I also threw rapid launch bays on here. It might not be the first option you take in an Akbar fleet, but it is certainly a worthwhile option to take on a lot of versions of the Assault Frigate Mark II. If you're considering dropping some B-Wings on here, this one can reveal a squadron command later on and drop 3 of them, and with its slightly larger base, being a medium-sized ship, it has a decent amount of places that it can drop those, and it should also survive long enough to be able to get up close and personal to enemy ships. Another thing I like about the Assault Frigate Mark IIB is because it is a medium ship, it has the ability to warp in through hyperspace with the hyperspace assault objective, and that was one of the things that we did early in the games of Armada, is that it was the best option for hyperspace assault, because you could load this up with rapid launch bays and just warp this thing in, drop 3 B-Wings off, plus the 3 that you take with hyperspace assault. So you could really have a big bomb with it. And of course, you can only do a small or medium ship with that particular objective. So this one kind of is the best bang for your buck, depending on the objective play that you're interested in going with. It's a fun one for that, that's for sure. On to looking at builds for specific titles. The Gallant Haven, if we're making a carrier here, I'd also do this one with a B because of the higher carrier value. Although, granted, the Gallant Haven does not have to be on the carrier. You can run the Gallant Haven on an A or a B. However, I just decided to put it on a B since that kind of makes the most sense for me in this particular case. And one of the things I wanted to do to make that work is I put Flight Commander on here and Flight Controllers. Now, Flight Commander is going to let me reveal a squadron command and then move and then activate the squadron command. So what this lets me do is it lets me get into position to engage enemy squadrons before I then move my squadrons and activate them. So it allows me to see, all right, I'm going to be, here I am. I can now put this guy here to protect him after he shoots. Because a lot of times a carrier will send somebody out to shoot. And this is especially good if you're shooting at TIE interceptors or enemy A-Wings or anybody that has counter. If you take damage back, the Gallant Haven can help reduce that. And so I like that option. Plus, it's also helpful to be able to know where you're going to be before you do move your squadrons up. Because even if they don't have counter, you're probably going to engage enemies, and you want to make sure that you line your squadrons up so that they're going to be within range 1 of you, but also at the position to do what they need to do. It's going to be much easier to triangulate all that if you move first, because then you don't have to guesstimate where you're going to be and risk bumping something and not making it and all of those things. So I kind of like that option for Gallant Haven. Flight Controllers is kind of a given. It's just going to give your squadrons that you activate an extra blue die, which is always nice. I put Reserve Hangar Deck on this one. A lot of times people will go with increasing your squadron value, and that's certainly a great option. But in this case, because we can protect squadrons, let's also bring one back with 2 life. The idea here is that usually a squadron that comes back with 2 health is going to instantly die on the next attack, but however, Gallant Haven can kind of make extra value off of that Reserve Hangar Deck, because now you'll probably survive for 2 attacks, maybe longer if we can get you to a spaceport. So that would be kind of cool. And then, of course, or the station, rather. Then, of course, linked turbo laser towers, just as a overall great card to come out for this. This was not one of the early turbo laser upgrades, but one of the slightly more recent turbo laser upgrades to hit the game. And that, considering that this ship has lots of red dice in all of its arcs, or at least multiple red dice in every arc, but it doesn't have any ways natively to deal with bad red dice results. This is one of the best turbo laser upgrades in the game, and also helps you re-roll that, and can also help go up against enemy squadrons if you have to. So it's just it's probably one of my favorite upgrades in the whole game, but it works very, very well on this ship. And the last build I want to talk about is the Paragon. Again, I was talking about salvo. If you're running Kirsta Agate as a commander, although I have the officer version over here right now, she can give it a salvo without any penalty. She just gives it an extra token, so you can choose, or you might choose to go for an extra brace or something like that. But I chose a lot of different options here, and I did go with Spinal Armament on this one. Granted, Spinal Armament may only give me one extra die on this one. However, because it's a faster ship at speed 3, it is very likely that you might be shooting out the rear on this one as well. But I like the idea of Spinal Armament on this one. I always have, because I'm trying to line up that double arc. I didn't want something that would increase my front, but maybe limit me to only attacking once, or something that was dependent upon speed, because usually I have to come in pretty fast. So I decided to go with Spinal, even though noticing that even while Spinal does increase your rear armament, it doesn't change your printed rear battery armament, so it will not impact your salvo tokens. Since you can't add dice to salvo tokens, I didn't want to go with something that would just add dice to any attack. So I chose Spinal Armament in this case. I have both of the options here that are going to give me a salvo token. Of course, I did say there are 3 where I'm not going with Kirsta Agate as a commander here, but I did put her officer version in here. So reactive gunnery is a great one. Even if you deal with accuracies, you're going to be able to spend any token you want to salvo. And then local fire control is going to let me swap out 1 token for a salvo. In this case, since I'm going to probably try and get up close and personal and get really close to bad guys fast, what I'm going to try and do is probably get rid of my evade in this case. And so I would swap my evade for salvo at the beginning of the game. Now I'll have 2 opportunities to salvo. And so I think that this is an important thing, because not every ship is going to attack me and then move into a position where I have them double arced. But if I can salvo multiple ships in that case, then I don't necessarily have to double arc a ship. I can, I've got you in my front and I've got you on my side. Or if I fly in between an enemy fleet, I've got you on the left and you on the right. And that's when I can really get the biggest bang for my buck with the Paragon title, is because I can take that triple red and a blue and a black out of the side, and then again out of the other side. Or the front will also be the same with Spinal Armament. Or the rear, and doing a normal attack out of the rear. And that's another reason why I wanted Spinal Armament here, because you never know where somebody's going to move. And because I have this thing loaded up to where every single arc is now 3 red and a blue, all of a sudden there is no safe spot for you to go. So anybody who attacks me is going to get hit back with 3 red, a blue, and a black. And that's beautiful. Or maybe only 3 red and a black, depending if they happen to stay at long range. But I want to get up close and personal. Now, the other cool thing about this is with Kirsta Agate as an officer, I can get that salvo readied again and get other defense tokens ready again, like my brace and stuff like that. And so this is a ship that can potentially salvo a whole lot. Now, if your opponent does decide to kind of go all in on this version, that's great that you're going to salvo a lot, but you probably will die very, very quickly. So you'll want to have some other kind of, either a whole bunch of other ships swooping in to kind of distract, to run interference, or some engineering support ships nearby, or you just kind of chalked this one up as a loss and hope that you did enough damage before it went out. But this could be a really, really fun way to run Paragon. Granted, I don't necessarily expect you to run all of this. Maybe a single upgrade with Paragon is going to work, like maybe a local fire control and Paragon can be a great option to do things. Don't necessarily need all of it, but I think this is kind of like the maximum possible Paragon, and it could be a fun way to do it. Again, alternatively, maybe Kirsta Agate as a commander on the Assault Frigate Mark II A as well can be a very fun way to go. And that's That's my breakdown for the Assault Frigate Mark II A and B. These are not the only ways to run it. It can run just about any role you want it to run. It can fit into just about any fleet. It can work with just about any commander, being that it's capable of doing speed 3, and it's a medium ship, the only medium ship. It does a whole lot of things good, although it's not really the best at any given thing. So with that being said, I'd love to hear what you guys have to think. You have some of your favorite Assault Frigate Mark II builds. I'd love for you to share them down in the comments or in our Discord. There's a great link to the Discord down there in the comments section, or rather in the video description. So be sure to check that out. Check the other links down there as well. You can check out our Discord and our social media links and Patreon as well. I want to thank you guys so much for watching today. And as always, big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this channel possible. Thank you for your continued support. May the Force be with you, and have a nice day.